Awesome. Here we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the Adobe ColdFusion Administrator Part 2 talk. Last month I did Part 1. If you want to check that out, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Adobe ColdFusion. My name is Mark Takata, and I am the technical evangelist for Adobe ColdFusion, and I will be your speaker today, talking about some of the fancier and maybe less well-known pieces of the Adobe ColdFusion Administrator. A little bit about me. I am a developer by trade. I've been doing programming in a variety of languages for about 25 years. Sure, Doug. Yeah, let me youtube.com/Adobe ColdFusion. Let me just put that in there. There you go. And I've also done things like UI UX and project management and all sorts of fun stuff. I was a graphic designer. I do 3D. I do some VR stuff, so I'm kind of all over the map. But ColdFusion was my first language, and I've been doing it for 25 years, and that's why Adobe just over a year ago hired me to be your evangelist. So the first thing that we're going to start on today and talking about is Saml. And one of the things about today's talk, like the administrator is incredibly complex. There's so many things that I could talk about. I could probably have a week of multi-sessions a day going through this. So in some cases, what I'm going to be doing is sending you folks to other resources and just talking about what the tooling is and what you can do with it. So this is one of the latter things. So Saml is a feature that ColdFusion 2021 came out with that allows you to do single sign-on. And it's a little bit difficult to demo because you need like either an Okta or other single sign-on account to do that. And actually, one of the engineers, Edwin Samuel Jonathan, actually did an amazing talk on it. And there's a link up there, video.tv.adobe.com. You'll be able to see this off of the, let me actually, how is somebody else, hold on. Yeah, no, webcam's only for me. So let me, hold on, I'm just gonna type, actually, Apoorva, could you type that that URL in for folks so that they can copy it and link it over? So what is Saml? So this is actually a really powerful single sign-on tool that we've been able to use in ColdFusion before, but it took about 100 lines of code to incorporate it, and it was very complex, kind of a pain in the butt to get to work. Sorry, Ashwar, the URL that's in the PowerPoint, it's Edwin's talk on Saml. Okay, great. So there are two parts to any Saml setup, and you will find them in the administrator under security, which kind of makes sense because you're setting up the ability to do sign-on. And essentially the way it works is you have an IDP, an identity provider, and then you have an SP, which is a service provider, right? And ColdFusion supports both of those things. I'm not going to go too deeply into this because, again, actually doing this does require that you have a SAML endpoint to point to. And actually, if you use like Okta, for example, it gives you this really, really nice ability to import from an existing SAML definition, which I've done at another talk, but actually Edwin's talk really goes into that and should give you a really, really awesome example of how to do this if you are looking to do SAML at your organization. If you are, this is a great option to do it with. Let me move on to packaging and deployment. So one of the tools that's been around with ColdFusion for quite a long time is the ability to create these archives that you can generate copies of your server with, right? So there's something called a CAR, a ColdFusion archive file, that will take a snapshot essentially of your server with some small issues with it that don't get moved over. For example, like Derby stuff doesn't get moved over. Anything that actually has a that's pointing at a location. So like if you have an access database data source, that actually won't move over. You'll have to set that up. How do I maximize the window that's showing Mark's desktop? Dimitri, are you not able to see what's on my? I can let me make this a little bit bigger so that you guys can read it. What can you do with the packaging and deployment? So what you can do is you can take a server that you've got set up and running, and you can actually create an archive using it. Hold on. Sorry. So Dimitri, I think you can. I just turned off forcing presenter view, so you should be able to go to the upper right-hand corner of the piece that has my screen in it to maximize that. Carl says, Saml, what are the number of partner connections limitations? Actually, I don't know that answer, Carl, but by the way, if you guys have questions, if you could put them into the Q&A pod, that'll make it easier for me to go through them at the end, because the chat is going to get kind of filled with stuff. So, and some of the things I am going to have to go and do a little bit of research on, like limitations and things like that, for like, what limitations are in SAML, because, it's fairly new. I don't know everything about that necessarily. Yeah, Apoorva, could you help Dimitri and see? Like, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with their screen there, but so back to cars. So cars are a kind of a full encapsulation of your server, and they mostly work, I believe, on Windows. So it's a non-J2EE. It's not like a Linux thing. So it's really easy to create them. I mean, you can create, let's see. What you'll do is you'll actually say create, and then what you'll do here is you can go through and set all of your settings, and there's a ton of things that you can select. So you can move over anything that you want, and you can not move over things that you don't want. So so that's pretty important. On the other side, the J2EE archive, so these are ears and wars, and there's the differences between them are that one encapsulates the other, but doesn't include all of the things in the first one. I'm not actually super sure exactly what those differences are. I've never done a lot of J2EE deployment myself. Sorry, I was just checking the chat to make sure everything's okay. But it's a very useful thing. I know that some toolings like CommandBox, they do use J2EE packaging, so it's an important thing to be able to do there as well. And you can see up here, by the way, you'll be able to check this out, and I'll be putting this PPT up into my GitHub repo so that you'll be able to download it and get to all of these links. And I will give you the link to that repo at the end of the talk so that you can actually go and check out all of these links. So there is a really, really good informational page about deploying ColdFusion applications at helpx.adobe.com, which I definitely, if it's something interesting to you, check that out. All right. So instancing and clustering. Now, this is something that's really only available on the non-standard, so the enterprise edition of ColdFusion. If you have standard, it's not something that's going to be available to you. And what this allows you to do is to create new instances of ColdFusion. And remember, you do have to have them licensed and all that. I'm not going to really deal with the details there. I'm just going to hand wave that into place here on mine. But it allows you not only to add a new instance locally. So if I come in here and I want to add a new instance, I can actually go ahead and give the server a new name, give them a directory to go into, choose whether I want it to be a Windows service or not, and submit it. And I'm not going to do that because I already have like 3 of them running on this box. in a variety of capacities. So I did do that before, and I created this one here. And you can see I put it into its own little directory, a V2 directory. It will be assigned a new port, 8501, a new remote port. And then you can actually see this is in a cluster because I went over here and I created a new cluster, and I went in and actually added that to it. So if I want to, I can actually go in here and remove the new instance from the cluster, and you can see the cluster has gone away. So again, there's a lot of details here. There's a lot of complexity. There's a really, really good page on it over on HelpX with multiple server instances that you can get more info on. If you have more questions, please do put them in the Q&A pod, and I will try and get them answered and sent back over to you. But again, it's this is like pretty high-end stuff. This is like things like sticky sessions and load balancing and all of that fun stuff. Package Manager. So this is one of my favorite features in CF 2021. I actually did a whole talk on the Package Manager CLI, which is different than the normal ColdFusion CLI, by the way. They're two separate pieces. And what this does, if you're not familiar, if you're still on 2018 or a previous version of ColdFusion, you know, like when you install ColdFusion, you just install ColdFusion, right? You get the whole shebang, right? The dump truck. you get everything included in it. With 2021, what we did was we give you the opportunity to only install the packages that you need, which makes it more efficient and uses up less memory and all of that good stuff. So there is a page here that allows you to go through, and this is actually the page that used to, I think it was like a server manager before. And this is also where you would check for your server updates, right, and install them. And for some reason, I don't have update 4 installed, probably because I just spun this thing up the other day. But here you can actually see you've got all of the packages that are installed, and these are the packages that I don't have installed, right? So this is one place that you can choose the things that you actually need to show up here and set your server up so that it's a little more efficient. But how do you know which packages you need, right? So there is a really awesome tool, and I'm just going to bring this up in my terminal. So if you're using VS Code, you can actually go in the terminal, and I'm going to go ahead and go ColdFusion, if I spelled correctly, 2021 CFusion bin. And then, as you know, this is PowerShell. So to run something, you actually need to do the // and you're going to run CFPM. And now you're running in the CLI for CFPM. At this point, you can run help, and this will actually give you all of the things that you can do inside of the CFPM. And as you might imagine, this is kind of our version of NPM. I mean, it's like a light version of NPM. It can't do all the things that NPM can do. And this is really only for packages that are available, that we allow to be available, right? So you can't just go out and like randomly add some other external package. That won't work here. This is only for the things that are sort of approved and part of the ColdFusion setup here. Although I will say occasionally we will add a new package with an update here and there. That has happened. So let's go through and do some of these commands. And what can it do? So one of the things you can do is you can list all of the available, all of the things that are out there for that are running on your server, right? So that is actually the equivalent of this installed packages list, right? But it's done in a CLI format, which is cool. But what else can you do? So there are things you can actually do in the CFPM that you can't do in the GUI yet. And I'm trying to get some work done with the engineers to get this added to the GUI so that you don't have to do it in the CLI. But in the meantime, one of the things that you can do is you can actually scan a path to see what packages are required inside of the code that's in that path. So let's see if I can actually do this on the first try. C:/ColdFusion2021/cfusion/www/root/custom pod/ hold on, let me just double check that this is the correct. Pod scheduler. Okay, so scheduler and http://localhost:8500. Okay, so what are the two things that need to be put in there? There is the folder that contains the code that you want to scan and a link to where the server is that is running that code. So in that case, in my case, it's localhost 8500. That's where this server is running. And the folder is custom pods scheduler, which is a tool that I'm working on for the Connect team. I'm going to go ahead and hit that. Of course. Did I do the wrong? That's funny. Hold on. C // custom pods. Sorry, I do this every time too. I swear, you would think that I would know how to like actually do this. Oh, and of course my terminal dies. Sorry, folks. Now, by the way, you can do this with pretty much any shell, right? So I would not have to do this in the terminal if I wanted to. I could actually go down here and just open up PowerShell. Run as admin. And I'm just going to do it in there because VS Code was being a little bit flaky with me. So I'm going to go ahead and change to ColdFusion 2021/oopsie/bin and run /CFPM. There we are. And then I'm going to go ahead and scan. And just so that I know I'm going to the right location. We're going to go to CFusion, root, the pods, scheduler. Oops. Just so that it's in the right place. Scheduler. And let me make sure actually, hold on, sorry about that. http://localhost:8500. See, 8500. That should work. No, why is that not working? Sorry, everyone. Oops. Do I have that backwards? I don't know why that's not working. Anyway, not sure why that's not working. I did do a talk on this, by the way, where I did get it to work. I'm not sure why. I must just be putting in the wrong information. I'm going to move on, though. I know, debugging, I know. Oh, is it the / in my localhost? Let me try that one more time. Is that what I'm doing wrong? Yes, thank you, AE with the, or Bart Bart with the save. Thank you. I had the wrong slashes. Durr. Sorry. So there you go. So that scanned and it found the things that are needed there. So debugger, because I do have some debugging code in there. Derby, because I actually do some data access. So Derby is the engine that runs some of our DSN stuff, right? So that's needed. And then AWS DynamoDB, because I actually have DynamoDB on AWS running as my as my data source for the scheduler pod that's going to run in Connect. So there we go. So you can also do scan and install the same way, which will actually install the things that you need there. Now, what we don't have, which I would also like to run, is a tree shaking code where basically it will uninstall everything that's installed that you don't need. But we don't have that yet. But this does help you. You can actually go through and just manually go through and uninstall the things that you don't need that are there. So, okay, so moving along. Licensing and activation page, our favorite thing ever. Sorry, let me put this back up. I'm going to put this back to a narrow thing so that we actually can read this. I'm going to exit here. There. Exit the hard way. Okay. So, licensing and activation. Where is my... where did my localhost go? So, boom. All right. There we go. So, licensing and activation. This is an interesting area. So, this will actually help you with getting your CF 2021 licensed. And it can also help you to find out if your server gets offline at any point. Sorry, there's a question. So you don't have to use CF Builder. I know other IDEs can be used, but didn't know of anyone that did that. No, Michael, you can use any IDE to do ColdFusion development. And in fact, we are doing an extension for VS Code that is going to go and tie into, it's going to like tie into the ColdFusion Administrator, the ColdFusion server, all that good stuff. So yeah, no, you don't have to use Builder. In fact, I have spent the majority of my life not using Builder. So I use VS Code regularly in my day-to-day. And prior to that, I would use things like Notepad++ and other tools, mostly because I couldn't afford Builder. I was a poor little dev. But now it's all free, so yay. Now the extension is going to be free when it comes out, by the way. Yes, and I use Dreamweaver too. I was a Dreamweaver user because FTP is awesome. Sorry, back to licensing and activation. So you can see here I've got my instance license here. It's an enterprise license, and I could activate, deactivate. I could add a different serial number if I want to. And then what you can actually do here is you can track your usage of your licenses. So this is actually kind of useful for you as a company. If you've got a bunch of licenses that you're trying to use across your enterprise, you can go through in here and you can actually look at the cores that are deployed on them, the deployment types that are set up, whether they're active or not, whether they're a Docker instance or not. So this is actually a really, really kind of useful tool. It's got your total activations within that time frame, the Docker usage within that time frame. Very useful. Then you can actually export that to a PDF report. So site management in DW is a lifesaver. Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, I am so sad that Dreamweaver is not what it used to be back in the day. I was a big Dreamweaver fan. Another really cool setting in licensing and activation is setting up a notification to let you know when your server is offline and email you to let you know that it's been offline. So this is actually a lifesaver because if you're, for example, someplace that maybe you don't trust that your servers are up all the time. I know that occasionally I've worked for clients that would have, like rack servers or something that they would go down or someone would mess with them and nobody would notice for a little while. This can actually send an email notification out to you to let you know that it's been done. You can also do auto restart on activation, deactivation, changing usage data, things like that. So this is actually a really, really useful thing. Like, not a lot of people know about this tooling in here, and it can be kind of a lifesaver. So it's nice to have it in here. Let's see, usage. Yep. Okay, I think this is going to be my favorite part here. So I'm not sure if most people realize and know that the administrator, the ColdFusion Administrator, so this puppy right here, this is all pretty much available to you as a ColdFusion developer using the Administrator API. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that this page actually runs and was designed and programmed and works the way that it does based on all of these APIs here in www.root CFIDE admin API. And they are all open and available to you to leverage using your own code if you would like to do so. It's kind of mind-blowing, actually. And you might ask, well, why in the world, like, why would I do that, right? Like, why would I want to have my own version of the administrator when basically everything is all here? So actually, there's a lot of really good reasons why you might do that. One of the issues that has come up over time is that access to the administrator is not super granular. And what I mean by that is you, as an administrator, you pretty much have access to everything in here, right? And maybe you might have members of your team that shouldn't have access to, for example, data sources, right? And maybe the people who have access to changing data sources, well, maybe they shouldn't have access to the package manager or the enterprise clustering stuff. Maybe they don't really need to have this accessible, because you could break the heck out of things here if you wanted to, right? I mean, heck, you could break anything anywhere. But possibly what you might want to do is just create an interface for yourself that maybe just lists out information about data sources for your programmers to use, or only allows you to edit them. The sky's the limit in what you can do. Here, you pretty much can come in and you got everything, right? You've got access to every single thing here. You have access to every piece of information throughout, right? I mean, I can go in here and I can set up new REST services or destroy them if I don't know what I'm doing. So that's a really, really powerful tooling that is, frankly, not really something a lot of people have heard of or know. And there's a reason why. It's obviously fairly complicated. And I'll show you I'll show you why. So if you actually go through and jump into CFusion, or was it bin? No, it was www.root CFIDE admin API. So all of these CFCs have quite, oh, wait a minute, sorry, have quite a bit of information in them. So let me show you something that you can do. Hold on. So you can come in and say localhost 8500 CFIDE root slash sorry, what was that folder? Admin API. So CFIDE admin API. Why is that not working? Sorry. Oh, I'm missing CFusion. This is not my day, folks. Not my day. CFusion, CFIDE. Oh. All right. CFusion, root. All right. All right, you're killing me. You're killing me. Sorry, folks. So A says, I was thinking it was an API manager, like created data sources based on an API scheme pre-set up on the CF admin. No. So all of the functionality inside of it is available for you to kind of create your own thing. Now, the other thing that you can actually do here, which is really, really cool. I'm trying to think. I swear I had this actually up. You know what? Yes, there it is. Okay. I don't know why that's actually working. Oh. Okay, there we go. All right, I have it working now. So if you go to, sorry, 1 second. If you go to CFIDE admin IPI, I was adding root because I'm an idiot because I forgot that I was already in root. Okay, so here is the list of all of your CFCs. Now, what you can do here is let's look at, for example, the data source CFC. By the way, you need an RDS password to be able to set this up. So you do need to have the RDS password to be able to view this. This is the CFC that runs all of the data sources and has all of the methods that you can use, what their outputs are, what their parameters are. Yeah, this is the mind-blown part stuff here. So look at all of the crazy things that you can do here. Now, I will say, full disclosure, this sort of is opening up the the back room in the house where you kind of throw all of your stuff in. There are a lot of methods in here, stuff that you might be like, what in the world does this do? So you do have to play with it a little bit. For the most part, you can kind of figure out. I mean, it'll say returns the ODBC server service name, things like that, get URL defaults. But sometimes it's like, get URL defaults. It returns the URL default values. Well, what the heck does that even mean, right? Well, play with it and see what you get back. You can install ODB services, remove them, set DB. I mean, there are just a ton of things, and this is just one CFC. So this is a really, really fun thing to play with, by the way, if you want to really get to know your ColdFusion instance, administrator, all that good stuff. And I'm going to give you a demo here of what it looks like when you actually go and hit one of these. So I made a little demonstration here. And what I did, this is a very, very basic piece of code. And one thing to note, by the way, whenever you are dealing with the admin API interface, you must always pass in a valid administrator password. So you must always create this login object and pass in, username, password, all of that stuff, which is here but hidden because you can't know my password. It's off to the right. So that's how we start. So first we create an object of the type component, and this is actually one of the components inside of the CFC. So this is the only one that you can actually instantiate without having valid credentials, because it takes valid credentials. You get the point. So then what you'll do is you'll actually run the login method, pass in your oh, you see my password. Okay, anyway, sorry, I'm dumb. Never mind. My password's right there. Admin, hack me. And then you're going to create an object, and you're going to choose what component you want to use. So I decided to use the data source component, here, just because it's one that's fairly easy. Like everybody knows data sources, right? You can kind of guess what you're going to get back, and we'll see what we get back. You actually get back a lot about the data source. Actually, it's pretty cool. And then what you're going to do is I actually create myself a data source struct by passing into my get data sources method the word schedule. So this is the name of the DSN that I want to get data about. So this is what you get back here. And by the way, and actually, let me see if I refresh this work. So if I didn't pass this in, if I just did that, what I would get back is a struct containing every single DSN. Okay, so if you just pass in nothing into that method, you will get every DSN in there. If you actually specify a name, hold on. So schedule is a name, and you will do that. Admin object login, no. So actually, in mine, it actually didn't ask for a username because I'm using the style of login where it's one username and one password. So I don't have multiple users set up. I believe if you have multiple users, you would have to pass in username, password. But that's actually here in this helpx ColdFusion Administrator API reference, which, by the way, is an insanely long page. Like, hydrate before reading that one. Let me just put it that way. It's going to take you a while to get through it. So what do you get back, though? Like, this is some really, really cool info, and this is something that you could definitely use to get a lot of cool data out of your DSNs, list stuff out for a developer. You've got what class it is, everything about it, what kind of driver it is. So this is a MySQL driver, right? So that's kind of useful. It's got the host, and I'm actually connecting to HostTech, and that's a HostTech MySQL database. So that's what I'm sending over to that. And of course, as my password is hashed, so stop trying to hack my stuff, you guys. Jeez. Right, exactly. So that's exactly right. So you could actually create pages that just release, maybe some DSNs. Maybe you could even write something that like certain DSN info is available for certain people and others for other people. So yeah, it gives you much more flexibility and, like I said, granularity into your access, right? And all this data here, by the way, is it's here. So this is the version of that page that the administrator has right now, right? And you can see it has the same stuff, the server, the port, the database, your username, right? All of this stuff is coming across here, but it's in a return that you could choose to see what you wanted to actually pass back. And of course, there are methods inside of that CFC that allow you to edit this stuff, add a new one, delete it. You could delete DSNs from here. Now, the other thing that you can do, by the way, which is kind of a neat thing with this, is you can use this to script a setup for like if you were like, kind of instantiating your own copy of ColdFusion that was coming up, and you wanted to easily like pass over all of your DSNs, you could have a file that just did it, right? So this is actually kind of a version of kind of like a car, like where you were taking a car and passing it over, but a car is everything, right? It's kind of the whole kit and caboodle, and maybe you don't want to pass every single thing in there, and there's not enough granularity in setting up a car to do that. So you could create an admin API based file or application that allows you to just pass those things in there. Yeah, it's kind of the sky's the limit on this stuff. But again, it's very complex, and there's not a ton of documentation here necessarily. It's got docs on what everything does. In fact, I can hold on. Deployment, multiple servers. Yeah, so this is the page, and you can see how tiny the scroll bar here is like, this will actually have info on, kind of what each thing does, the output parameters, the same thing that you'll find by drilling into the admin API locally, right? You can actually look at it here. But again, like, there is just so much, right? So this is a really fun thing to play with. And if you're looking to do more granularity and more power inside of your installs, this is a great way to do it. And by the way, if anybody does build a system like that, please tell me, because I would love to have you do a talk on it at one of our upcoming conferences. So that, by the way, is it for me. For the demo today. I did want to talk to you a little bit about some things that are coming up. I already talked about Dev Week. So Dev Week, once again, for folks that weren't here early on in the talk, Dev Week is coming up in July. It is July 18th through to the 22nd. And if you, I'm just going to go ahead and repost into the chat. Booyah. Thank you, Apurva. So it's free. It's a whole week. There's 4 sessions a day for 5 days. That's 20 sessions of folks doing talks on everything from security to programming to databases. I mean, anything and everything that you could want to know. We'll be doing a demo talk by the engineers about the new VS Code extension for Adobe ColdFusion Builder. That's going to be talked about in detail, so please do not miss that. Another really, really big thing. Oh, yes, and it's free, 100% free, and it's fully online. And it will be recorded also, so if you cannot make the whole thing, or even if you can't make one of the sessions, please do sign up, because you will then get a link for a video on demand version that you'll be able to watch at your leisure. Another really big thing, and I hope you all know about it, but if you don't, CF Summit is back. In-person CF Summit is back. We are going to be at the Mirage Hotel in October. In person, it's going to be amazing. Apurva, could you link the link to the registration? The registration is super, super cheap, you guys. It's so cheap. It's $99 to come for 2 full days of just session after session. We have 3 different tracks per day. We go all day, and then we have a big party on day 1. If you would like to get your self-certified in ColdFusion, which, by the way, I highly recommend. It's really good for your career if you're a ColdFusion developer, if you want to get skilled up, if you want to learn how to do object-oriented programming in ColdFusion, which, spoiler alert, you do. It's a little bit more money, but definitely worth it. And day 3 is a full day of certification, by the end of which, if you pass, better pass, you will get yourself an Adobe Certified Professional in Adobe ColdFusion certification. So definitely sign up for that. Sign up for it now. Get your stuff in now. It's going to get much harder to find hotel rooms. Las Vegas is an absolute chaos ball. It's so busy. So we actually have a set of hotel rooms like set up at a special price. It's so much cheaper than if you go and get it yourself. Get them while they're hot. And if you've wanted to do a talk, maybe if you've never done a talk before and you're interested in doing a talk on ColdFusion, please send that talk in. There's a link at the bottom that will allow you to send in your talk proposal. If you don't think you're ready for it, you're never ready for it. Put it in anyway. I wasn't ready for my first one in 2016. And a friend of mine, Brian Class, we were having lunch, and he said, just do it. Just do it. And the very next year, I applied, and I did my first talk at ColdFusion Summit, and it was amazing. It's an amazing experience. I highly recommend it. You'll make tons of friends. So let me go back. I'm going to go through and kind of catch all the questions. I've got someone from Wake Health who asks, so we run the Docker version. What is the recommended way of getting updates? Thus far, we've Docker exec into the running container and use the CLI to update what's running in the container. However, to preserve that, we then need to Docker commit that running container into a new image so that we can have that new image going forward. That's a really good question. Let me go ahead and ask my engineers that, because that's a really good question, and we should probably have some format. Let me just ask a follow-up question to that. This is DBA Beacock. Are you using our image to start, or are you using the command box image? Or are you building your own completely from scratch? Our image. Okay. Could you please email me at Takata at adobe.com? Just copy and paste this question into an email and email it to me. And I'm going to go ahead and chat with my engineers and see what we can do to kind of help that out, because that's a really good use case and we need to be able to support that. Thank you. That's a very good question. Let me go back through. Kathleen asks, can the CF Summit be done online? So unfortunately, no. We tried. We tried really hard. There are new rules since COVID in Vegas where basically it would double our costs to do an online version, which pretty much made it impossible for us to be able to do it. It's either in person or completely online. And since we already do an online conference in the summer, Dev Week in July, the summit is going to be in person only. So sorry about that. We're trying to kind of like cover the bases there. However, you also asked for the certification, and the certification is available 100% remotely if you want to do it that way. So you can totally do the certification completely online. You get over 100 hours of videos to watch, and then you can take the test online and get your cert. This is just another different option for people who maybe prefer to be in a classroom setting in person. That's why we're offering it in person at the Mirage on day 3. So it's the day after the 2 CF Summit days. So good questions. Thank you very much. Michael asked about CF hosting, and we got some info there as well. Thank you, Apurva, for the speaker application link. So again, we really want to see new people talking. We don't want to just have the same old folks there necessarily, although we love them. We want to see new blood up there too. So please send in an application for doing a talk. We'd love to hear how you're using ColdFusion. Everyone has really cool use cases. Everyone has unique ways that they're using ColdFusion, and we want to see how you're doing it. You'd be amazed at how things that you think are normal and maybe banal and not all that interesting are actually really fascinating and awesome, and people will love seeing how you're leveraging ColdFusion in cool new ways. I've been trying to get a friend of mine to do his ORM talk forever. But any more questions? Thank you. Okay, so my friend from Wake Health has emailed the question to me. Thank you very much. I will get on that as soon as I'm done with the talk today. Further on, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any more questions just generally about the administrator, about anything I've talked about today, about the online conference that's coming up in July, the free one, or CF Summit? Bill Brusman says, I have had trouble doing APIs with Hostdeck. Can you expand on that, Bill? When you say you've had trouble doing APIs, is it because the CFCs are not appearing properly when you're coding them? And the reason I say that is because I had similar issues. I've been with Hostdeck for about 11 years. And the thing I really learned how to do, host tech has instructions. Yeah. The thing that I really learned that I had to do with them was to clear their template cache a lot. They have some settings where their caches are not set up real good in terms of clearing out, and so occasionally I would like make changes to CFCs and they wouldn't show up properly, or things like that. Like they wouldn't show up remotely. So really, my answer to that is I do all of my development locally. And then I push my stuff up to Git and have it moved over to host tech. That's kind of what I do, because I just have, I just have way more control locally. This is sort of this is the drawback and sort of the give and take of working with a hosting company. Is they're significantly cheaper. They're sort of very, very online, like they've got a lot of power to host your stuff, but at the same time, you don't get a lot of granular control. You don't get a lot of atomic control over things like what the caching is set up to do, access. Yeah, there's very, very little admin access. I mean, there is a CP panel or a C panel that does give you like a little bit of access to stuff, but other than that, yeah, there's not a lot of access. Mostly because it is a shared environment, right? Like if you were able to access things, you'd be able to turn them off for other people. And I should note, by the way, you're not going to be able to hit these APIs on a hosting platform. They're not going to let you do it because you'd be able to kill things for other people. So that is a drawback of that as well. I mean, you could do it locally. The other option is to set up hosting in like AWS or Azure. Yeah, Bill, give me an email if you have specific questions and things like that about issues that are not working there. I have connections with host tech that I've built up over the last decade, and I can try and see if I can get an answer for you. Keen asks, is there any plan to document or expose the APIs that drive the API manager? So you want to manage the API manager's APIs? So I don't think there is necessarily, but if you have a particular use case or a particular ask, Keen, I'd love to hear about it, because we are always looking to improve the functionality. That's just something that we have not. We've kind of kept it the same for a long time because the users that use the API manager just seem to like it, and it works fairly well. So if you have a use case that you'd like to share with us that you've been needing or wanting a feature request, please share it with us. Either email me or you can put it into the tracker under a feature request and let me know, and I can upvote it so that it pops up higher on the Jira for feature requests for our engineering team. John Dwyer asks, do you have any best practices for managing CF code in Git? Well, the first one is use Git. Definitely set up. So one thing that you can do to help manage your code in Git is to make sure that your Git ignore is set up for ColdFusion code. So that's an important thing when you're setting up your repo. Do that right off the bat. I think it's under something dumb though. I think it's like under CF wheels, like not ColdFusion in general. It's like under a specific framework, but I mean, same thing. Like it will understand it better as well. Other than that, I mean, just doing it is important, and best practices in Git will apply to best practices in CF and Git. So use a Git methodology is my best suggestion there. I use Git flow. That's sort of my fallback every time I have to do some sort of Git thing, but it's also what I've done for the past half decade or so. So your mileage may vary. It also matters what your team is used to doing. If you've never used Git, some of the Git methodologies can be kind of complex, and you often will fail the first few times trying them. And so it's important to have patience, or start off with a really basic Git methodology and move your way up to more complex things, a more complex workflow, a more complex software development lifecycle. Let's see. Michael was just going to ask about AWS, host tech versus AWS. Well, that's a really good question. It's sort of the age-old question, like host it yourself or have a host do it. I personally like Azure because I kind of came up in Azure. Like that's where I did a ton of development over the last decade. AWS, I've really only been doing for the last couple of years. It's also awesome, but with my experience being mostly on the other side of things, I've had much more difficulty kind of learning the ropes. Like AWS is a very complex, highly feature-rich environment. Like anything you want to do, like I think there's 17 ways to host a Docker container in AWS, right? So like, which one do you use? That's always the question. So if you're kind of a hands-on person and you want to learn how to do things and DIY them and make them work, AWS is great. For things that are a little bit simpler, I'd go with either a different cloud provider because they tend to like kind of simplify things down a little bit, give you less options, but you can still do things. Or a hosting provider is a good way to do a fire and forget type of situation where you don't really have to worry about the server being updated. Yeah, you don't really have to worry quite as much about server security, all of that jazz. That's kind of handled by the host. So that's what you get with that. You lose granular control though. So it is a give and take. If as far as costs, it tends to be a little more expensive to go with something like an AWS, just because they kind of nickel and dime you on all the different things that you have to add, plus your own time, which most people forget to put into their cost things, right? So it might cost you 40 cents or $4 a month or something to have your host there, but if it takes you 10 hours a week to administrate it and set things up and update things and change things around, I mean, you're paying for your time too, right? It's not infinite, and it's definitely not free. At least mine isn't. Awesome. Well, we have about 3 minutes left. Thank you all for all of your awesome questions. I plan on seeing every single one of you at Summit, right? Maybe. Definitely want to see every single one of you at Dev Week coming up in July. It's free. Please sign up. We want to see you there asking questions. Attend as many live sessions as possible so you can actually ask questions of the people doing the talks. It's very, very useful for you. If you can't do that, you'll be able to look them up on video on demand, and most of them will have contact information that you can then email them your questions at the end of the session. So you could always do it that way as well. Scott out here shilling for host tech. What are you doing, Scott? I'm giving him grief. Scott and I are in the same city. So I've known Scott for, oh gosh, a very, very long time. Hush, Scott. Awesome, Carl. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. I look forward to seeing you all. It's going to be a great time. Definitely keep an eye out. You can get a hold of me in like a wide variety of ways. As you can see there, my email is takata@adobe.com. My door is always open on Twitter. I am at Mark Takata. My GitHub is there. It's Mark R. Takata. And I will be posting this this PPT up in the, there's going to be a folder there called webinars, and it'll be up there. My LinkedIn is Mark Takata. Feel free to add me there. I'm Mark Takata Adobe on the CFML Slack. If you're not there yet, please do join. I promise we won't bite, or at least most of us won't bite. And if you ever want to just like spend 15 minutes and chat with me about anything about ColdFusion or whatever, you can actually get a 15-minute slot with me Monday through Friday at calendly.com/Mark Takata. So I'd love to hear from you. Let's chat. Thank you all for coming. Super, super excited to see you. Glad I could be of assistance and help. Hopefully everyone is now going to build these really cool ColdFusion API Administrator API tools, and I want to see them. So if you come up with something really cool, please do send me a link to it. I'd love to see what you all build with it, and then maybe you could do a talk on it. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop the, if you could stop the recording, Apurva.